I never imagined that the excitement that I gave my body and soul to it in my twilight years would turn into the deepest betrayal of my life. The person who made my 62-year-old heart beat again stole only my warmth in a single night and vanished. The sweet lie that he would be my last love still lingers in my ears. I didn't know that the time I shared with him on the night of our first blind date would leave an indelible scar on my heart forever. The shocking betrayal I suffered and my tearful confession that followed. Today, I am braving my shame to share this heartbreaking confession. If you are curious about my painful story, please subscribe, like, and set notifications right now. It's all free, so please feel free to press those buttons. And please listen until the end, and if you can empathize, I would appreciate a comment that gives me strength. Your interest and support are a great comfort to me. I will now begin the shocking story that started with a chance blind date. My name is Kim Hae-ja, and I turned 62 this year. It was early May and a spring drizzle was falling as I sat in a small cafe in Namcheon-dong, Busan. The view from my seat was filled with calm lines created by raindrops flowing down the window pane. I was holding a warm Americano in my hands, spending time looking out the window, every now and then. I don't know how long it has been since I waited for a meeting with a stranger like this. It was a blind date arranged by Yoon-suk, whom I've spent years with in classes at the community center. At first, I really didn't want to go. I thought, a blind date at my age. It has been 8 years since I lost my husband. All that time, I had just been living my life quietly. But because of Yoon-suk's persistent persuasion, I ended up coming here. Hae-ja, just meet him once. There's no one better than him. He's a truly genuine person. Yoon-suk's words kept echoing in my ears. I never thought I would find myself waiting for someone with such a fluttering heart. I was flustered by these unfamiliar emotions, but the aroma of coffee filling the cafe and the sound of spring rain outside strangely comforted me. Without realizing it, I took out a hand mirror and smoothed my hair. I had dyed my hair and dressed up for the first time in a while. I colored my graying hair black and applied a little bit of lipstick, which I rarely wear. Still, I couldn't do anything about the wrinkles on my 60-year-old face. Suddenly I wondered, is this appearance okay? My heart sank at the thought. The clock on the cafe wall was moving slowly toward the promised time. I grew more nervous as the time approached, but strangely my excitement grew as well. Without knowing it, I looked out the window and imagined him walking toward me with an umbrella. It doesn't look like the rain is going to stop anytime soon. I could hear the conversation of a young couple sitting at the next table. Watching them, my own youth suddenly came to mind. Back then, such excitement was natural. But I never imagined I would feel this way again, after all these years. As I took a sip of coffee and looked out the window, the rain seemed to be getting heavier. There was still about 10 minutes left until the appointment, but my heart raced at the thought that he might arrive early. I never thought I would be able to feel this way again. After my husband passed away, I had simply grown accustomed to living alone for such a long time. But lately I couldn't deny the loneliness that would suddenly wash over me. I started to wish I could share the night sky and its stars with someone rather than watching them alone. That might be why I eventually accepted Yoon-suk's suggestion. However, doubts still lingered in my heart. Is a new relationship even possible at this age? What if we only end up hurting each other? I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup and felt its warmth. The sound of rain outside and the soft music in the cafe blended together to create a strangely peaceful atmosphere. In that moment, I felt my heart begin to relax just a little. I thought perhaps this meeting might just end as a comfortable conversation. I wondered if it wouldn't be enough just to share stories of life with someone of a similar age without expecting anything more. I wonder if he's a good person? I tried to imagine what he would look like in my head. Yeon-suk said he was a polite and sincere person, but I was still half doubting. Because she spoke so highly of him, I was actually a bit suspicious. Just then, I heard the sound of the cafe door opening. I found myself turning my head to look. A man entered the room, folding his umbrella. Hakunrala. My heart suddenly started to beat faster. Is that him? Watching him run his hand through his rain-dampened hair and look around the room, my tension grew. When my gaze reached him, our eyes met, as if he had noticed me too. Seeing him walk toward me with a slight smile, I sat up a bit straighter. I truly never imagined I'd meet someone new at the age of 60 on a rainy day like this. In that very moment, the sound of the rain, the scent of coffee, and the excitement were all around me. As he approached with a gentle smile, my heart fluttered for some reason.
Are you Miss Kim Hae-ja? My name is Lee Gun-ho. I hope I'm not late.
His voice was calm. He was so neatly dressed that it was hard to believe he was 60. We exchanged brief greetings, and he sat down across from me. Taking off his raincoat dampened by the rain, he gave a gentle smile.
I see you ordered coffee. Should I get a cup too, so we can chat?
Gun-ho ordered an Americano and returned to his seat. His hands resting on the table caught my eye. The traces of time were etched into the backs of his rough hands. I could tell at a glance that those hands had spent a lifetime touching and fixing things.
Let me introduce myself briefly. I am a retired aircraft mechanic. I spent 35 years repairing airplanes.
His words sparked my interest. Devoting 35 years of your life to one career is truly remarkable. He continued his story.
I mainly worked on the engines, which are the heart of an airplane. It was a constant series of tense moments, as I was responsible for people's lives. But every day was rewarding.
His eyes sparkled with vitality whenever he spoke about it. I could feel his pride in his profession. Listening to him, I got the impression that he was a sincere and responsible person.
Now that I'm retired, I run a small storage business. I own a few small storage units near the airport, providing a service for travelers to leave their luggage. And in my spare time, I do a little bit of stock investing.
I could feel his relaxed way of life through his words. He seemed like someone who had prepared for a stable retirement. Sipping his coffee, Gun-ho looked me in the eyes.
What kind of work did you do, Hae-ja?
At his question, I shared my story briefly. I told him I ran a small clothing store and have lived quietly since my husband passed away. Gun-ho nodded seriously, listening intently to my words. His tone of voice was very calm. There was no sense of exaggeration or haste at all. It was impressive how he carried on the conversation, almost as if he were meticulously checking an airplane engine. Whenever he smiled, gentle wrinkles appeared around his eyes.
To be honest, I was very nervous because this is my first time in a setting like this.
Gun-ho's honest confession helped me relax a little too. I guess I wasn't the only one who felt awkward. He slowly lifted his coffee cup, took a sip, and continued.
I parted ways with my wife 10 years ago. I have one daughter living in Canada. I've been living alone ever since, and I gathered the courage to come here because I wanted to spend comfortable time with someone.
His words were filled with sincerity. I liked how he talked about his situation without any pretense. Without realizing it, I felt my heart beginning to open up little by little. I took another look at Gun-ho's hands. Thinking that those rough hands had handled the delicate parts of an airplane gave me a strange sense of trust. I felt they were hands that had silently endured the weight of life. I imagined being an aircraft mechanic couldn't have been easy. At my words, he seemed lost in thought for a moment, before nodding.
That's right. Because a single mistake can be directly linked to the lives of hundreds. But the sense of responsibility and reward was just as great. Every morning, when I went to work, I worked with the thought that I was responsible for someone's safe flight that day.
I could feel the pride and sense of duty he had for his profession in his words. The depth of someone who had worked in one field for a long time came through. Looking out the window where the rain had slowed down a bit, Gun-ho smiled.
It's really nice to have a conversation while drinking coffee on a rainy day like this. It wasn't until I retired that I became able to enjoy these small moments of leisure.
I nodded in agreement at his words. We were of a similar age and in a similar situation. Perhaps it was a point in our lives where we were taking a pause and preparing to start a new sentence. The more we talked, the more I could feel Gun-ho's composure and sincerity. A man who dedicated 35 long years to one profession. And it was impressive to see him taking on new challenges with ease even after retirement. Every word he spoke carried the weight and experience of his life. Outside the cafe window, the rain began to pour even harder. But strangely, my heart felt warmer and warmer. Taking a sip of coffee, Gun-ho suddenly looked at me and smiled. Then he casually dropped a remark.
I've had a good feeling about this from the start. Should I call it fate?
For a moment, I was taken aback. I never expected to hear the word fate at the age of 60. I felt my face flush slightly. To break the awkward silence, I lifted my coffee cup to my lips. Perhaps noticing my embarrassment, Gun-ho smiled gently and continued.
I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I was just being honest with you. A blind date at this age is awkward, but the moment I saw you, Heija, I felt a strange sense of comfort.
His voice was calm and his eyes were warm. It seemed like his eyes looking at me were filled with sincerity. Although the word fate felt a bit much, his polite manner and honest demeanor made my guard begin to let down. I was also very nervous because it's been a long time since I've been on a date like this. At my honest confession, Gun-ho nodded. He gave a soft smile and took a sip of his coffee. He seemed lost in thought as he gazed at the streaks of light outside the window.
It's not easy to meet someone new as you get older, is it? But I think that's why it's all the more precious. People meeting not by coincidence but by fate.
I found myself strangely relating to his words. After all, I had avoided meeting anyone new for the 8 years since my husband passed. Honestly, I think I was afraid. Afraid of opening my heart to someone again and getting hurt. But Gun-ho's warm gaze and polite demeanor felt like they were slowly knocking on the door that had been tightly shut in my heart. To someone like me who had grown accustomed to loneliness for so long, his every word caused quiet ripples. Gun-ho listened with such focus as if he didn't want to miss a single thing I said.
That's truly incredible. To have overcome such difficult times all on your own.
His sincere words made my heart quietly tremble. It had been so long since someone listened to my story this earnestly after my husband passed. Most people just offered formal comfort, and didn't really try to understand my heart. As we talked over coffee, we became so absorbed in conversation that I didn't even notice time passing. Gunho spoke honestly about his experience as an airplane mechanic, memories with his daughter, and his life after retirement. It was still raining outside, but the air inside the cafe was warm. It was fascinating how I could talk so comfortably with someone I had just met. It felt as if I were meeting an old friend.
If you don't mind, could we meet again sometime? Bye.
I nodded without hesitation at his cautious suggestion. Although it was our first time meeting, I liked his calmness and warmth. I felt a small flutter blooming in my heart which had been closed off for so long. And so our first meeting went much more naturally than I had expected. At first, his talk of Fontaine fate felt a bit heavy, but the more we talked, the more I thought his words might not just be an exaggeration, but sincere. The moment we stepped out of the cafe and shared an umbrella, I felt someone's warmth for the first time in a long while. And it was fascinating that this warmth, though unfamiliar, felt comforting. Gunho's warm words were quietly seeping into my heart, which had been accustomed to loneliness for a long time. As time passed, the cafe began to get crowded with people. It became a bit difficult to continue our quiet conversation. That was when Gunho carefully lowered his voice and spoke.
My place is nearby. Would you like to have another cup of tea and talk some more?
For a moment, I was taken aback, because going to a stranger's house on a first meeting was something to be cautious about. But his offer was kind, and in all our conversations so far, he had never made me feel uncomfortable. Besides, the noise in the cafe was getting louder and louder. If you don't mind, will I be able to get home not too late? At my question, Gunho nodded, as if to reassure me. His eyes were filled with sincerity. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded, as if drawn in. I left the cafe and got into his car. Under the dark sky, the car moved smoothly along the path, guided by the navigation.
Hey, Ja. If you ever feel uncomfortable, please let me know. I will take you home right away.
His thoughtfulness put me somewhat at ease. The night view of Busan, unfolding outside the window, was beautiful. Especially the road heading toward Hyundai was even more so. The flickering lights along the road and the dark silhouette of the distant sea felt mysterious. The car entered a luxury apartment complex near Hyundai. Gunho's residence was on a high floor, overlooking the entire sea. As we rode the elevator up, I started to wonder if this was a wise choice, but at the same time I also felt a strange sense of excitement. When he opened the door to the residence, an open space unfolded before me. One side of the living room wall was made of floor-to-ceiling glass. It came into view at a glance. The way the waves sparkled and surged under the moonlight felt like a dream. Wow, this is a truly beautiful place. An exclamation came out before I knew it. Gunho smiled and headed to the kitchen.
Now let me make you a cup of tea. Would you like green tea? Or would you prefer herbal tea?
Green tea, please. While he prepared the tea, I sat on the living room sofa and looked at the scenery outside the window. The way the waves of Hyundai rolled in and out looked like they were alive and breathing. There was a strange magic to that sight. It was as if time had stopped, and I was lost in the scenery. Gunho brought the teacups over and placed them on the table. The warm scent of green tea spread through the room. He sat on the sofa opposite me. Between us there was only the low table, and the 2 cups of tea on it.
Heja, it was really nice to meet you today. To be honest, I hesitated a lot when I first heard about the blind date.
I smiled at his confession. I wasn't keen on it at first either. But now, I was having a comfortable conversation with warm tea, in this beautiful space, overlooking the sea. I felt the same way. But now, I'm glad I decided to come. At my words, Gunho's gaze deepened. His eyes held an emotion as if he had something he wanted to say. He took a sip of his tea and turned his gaze toward the window. The scenery of the sea, the aroma of warm tea, and Jeonho's comforting presence all blended together to create a mysterious atmosphere. It felt as if time was flowing slowly, like a scene from an old movie. We sat in silence for a while, just drinking our tea and gazing at the sea view out the window. Amidst the silence, I could feel Jeonho's gaze on me. I turned my head to look at him, and his eyes were filled with deep emotion. Jeonho slowly leaned toward me and spoke quietly.
I am truly sincere. I didn't expect to feel this way at my age, but I feel at ease when I'm with you, Heja.
There was a tremor in his voice. It couldn't have been easy for him to make such a sincere confession at 63. More than his words, I was drawn to the look in his eyes as he watched me. There was no falsehood in those eyes. They held deep, genuine emotions, like someone who had finally found something they had been searching for a long time. Jeonho carefully took my hand that was resting on the table. It was warm. It was the first time in the 8 years since my husband passed away that I held another person's hand. My heart fluttered. In that moment, a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time spread through my body. Only then did I realize how lonely I had been all this time.
Heja, I don't know if I should say this, but my heart fluttered the moment I saw you. It's a feeling I'm experiencing for the first time.
His words stirred my heart as well, because I felt the exact same way. I finally understood why I felt such a strange sense of comfort from the moment I first saw him at the cafe. I feel the same way too. At my response, Jeonho's eyes grew even deeper. He stood up slowly and moved to the seat next to me. Sitting side by side on the sofa, we looked out at the sea through the window. The moonlight rising over the night sea was creating a silver glow. Jeonho's arm naturally wrapped around my shoulder. I wondered if I could ever feel this way again at my age, but I felt a strange sense of security in his arms. It felt as if I had returned home after wandering for a long time. It's been a long time since I've been this close to someone. Instead of answering, Jeonho pulled me closer in his embrace. I could hear his heart beat. It was beating in the same rhythm as mine. Before I knew it, our faces were close. We were close enough that I could feel his breath. After a brief moment of hesitation, our lips met naturally. It was a soft and warm kiss. It felt as if time had stopped. In that moment, I forgot about my age, the scars of the past, and my anxiety about the future. Only the warmth and security I felt in someone's arms in this very moment were enveloping me. After the kiss ended, we looked into each other's eyes. It felt as though we were sharing so much without saying a word. Gunho's hand gently caressed my cheek. Sis.
Taija, may I stay the night?
I felt a moment of tension. I wondered if it was perhaps too soon. But his eyes held sincere affection, rather than desire. We had already shared so much through our hearts. As I nodded, Gun-ho lifted me up in his arms. Holding hands, we headed toward the bedroom. The night sea view beyond the window was watching over us. The moment we lay in bed looking at each other, the door to my heart, closed for 8 years, swung wide open. Gun-ho's hand carefully touched my face. His touch was rough yet warm. My heart fluttered to see him treat me so preciously with the same hands that handled airplane engines.
Taija, you are truly beautiful.
His whisper made my face flush red. I never imagined I would hear that I was beautiful at 60. Seeing his gaze, which found even my wrinkled eyes and graying hair beautiful, made me see myself anew. Gun-ho's lips touched my forehead. His kisses, moving from my forehead to my eyelids and cheeks, were as light and soft as butterfly wings. And when our lips finally met again, it held deeper and more sincere emotions than our first kiss at the cafe. My clothes slipped away gently. Part of me wanted to cover up, but under Gun-ho's sincere gaze, that shyness faded away. Our bodies, marked by the passage of time, were not perfect. But in that moment, we were the most beautiful beings to each other. His touch traveled down along my body. Ignoring our age, every one of his touches made me feel as if I were rediscovering the senses of my youth. Senses that had long been forgotten were waking up, one by one. My involuntary breaths filled the room. Gun-ho's body heat was transmitted to me. As our bodies grew closer, it felt as though the distance between our hearts was also narrowing. The sound of his heartbeat echoed against my chest. It felt as if two hearts were finding a single rhythm. Moonlight streamed through the window, softly illuminating our bodies. In that light, we looked into each other's eyes and became one. It was a deep communion that went beyond a simple physical union, as if our souls were meeting.
Are you okay?
I nodded at his sincere question. No more words were needed. Our bodies, our breaths, our gazes, they were saying everything. Our emotions swelled like the incoming tide. It was as if the floodgates of emotions long held back had finally burst. Accustomed to loneliness for so long, that night, I felt a passion for life once again. Our bodies moved, as if dancing a single dance, matching each other's rhythm, sometimes slow and sometimes intense. Our emotions surged like the ocean waves outside the window. At the peak, I saw the stars raining down. Though my eyes were closed, my mind's eye held the beauty of the universe. In that moment, time, space, and age held no meaning. Only the fullness of this very moment existed. Afterward, we held each other in silence. As our flowing sweat and hot breaths gradually settled, a sense of peace arrived. Being held in Gun-ho's arms, I felt a strange sense of stability. It felt like returning home, after wandering for a long time.
I'm happy to be with you.
I smiled at his whisper. A sense of happiness that words cannot express washed over me. 8 years after, my husband left, the warmth and security of someone else softly embraced my heart. We fell asleep like that, held in each other's arms. The sound of the ocean waves outside the window acted as a lullaby, and the moonlight softly illuminated us. That night, the loneliness of two people vanished, and the seeds of a new beginning were sown. The morning sunlight softly filtered through the window. When I opened my eyes, an unfamiliar space came into view. Suddenly, memories of yesterday flooded in, and I felt myself blushing. I reached out to the space beside me, but Gunho was nowhere to be seen. I got out of bed and looked around. Gunho was standing in front of the bedroom closet, looking for something. He had already buttoned his shirt and was dressed in his trousers. He seemed to be getting ready in a hurry.
Ah, you were awake. Did you sleep well?
There was something in Gunho's voice that felt different from yesterday. Rather than the warmth of last night, it felt a bit rushed and somewhat urgent. I wrapped the bedsheet around me and sat up. Yes, I slept well. But why are you in such a rush? He seemed to hesitate for a moment at my question. Then, checking his wristwatch, he spoke.
I am truly sorry. I suddenly got an urgent call from work, so I'll contact you later. Please go ahead.
I didn't know how to react to such a sudden situation. Unlike the deep emotions of last night, the Gunho before me now felt like a different person. He took his wallet and keys from the drawer and put them in his pocket. To the office? Does a warehouse business have emergencies like this? He hesitated at my question but soon composed his expression and answered.
Yes. An important client is visiting unexpectedly. There's so much to prepare.
His explanation sounded plausible, but something felt off. However, as our relationship had just begun, I was cautious about expressing my doubts. I got out of bed and put on my robe. The Gunho was dressing hurriedly. He looked different from the neat appearance he had at dinner last night. His shirt wasn't properly ironed, and he was rushing to dress without a tie. Are you leaving without breakfast? At my question, he checked his watch again and shook his head.
I don't have the time. I'm truly sorry. I'll treat you to a better breakfast next time.
I nodded at his words. I thought I should understand if it was an unavoidable situation. Gunho rushed out of the room toward the front door. I followed him. He checked his watch again while putting on his shoes. His eyes held a hint of anxiety, unlike the warmth from last night.
I'm really sorry to have to leave like this.
I forced a smile at his words. It's okay. Work is important. Please call me later. Gunho nodded and opened the door. He looked at me one last time before hurrying out the door. With the sound of the closing door, the residence suddenly felt too big. I stood at the entryway for a while. Did something happen suddenly? I wondered, but I tried to understand. He's a businessman, so emergencies happen, I suppose. Still, the feelings we shared last night must have been sincere. He'll call later. Muttering to myself, I tried to stay calm. But from that moment, a strange sense of foreboding began to settle in my heart. I went to the kitchen, brewed a cup of coffee, and sat by the window. The Hyundai Sea spread out before me, but, unlike last night, the view felt lonely. I took out my phone, turning the screen on and off, waiting for Gunho to reach out. But time passed and the phone didn't ring. Trying to suppress the growing anxiety, I attempted to understand how busy his work must be. Yet I couldn't help but think he could have at least sent a short message. Watching the sea outside, I felt conflicted between the sweet memories of last night and this current unease. Was I perhaps too hasty? I felt a bit embarrassed that I had opened up so much during our first meeting. After leaving John Ho's residence, I returned home. I couldn't put my phone down, waiting to hear from him. But time kept passing, and even as lunch approached, there was no word from him. I calmed my inner anxiety by telling myself he must still be in a meeting. I thought that since he left so abruptly in the morning, he must be very busy. But when lunch passed and the afternoon arrived, I couldn't wait any longer. Gathering my courage, I dialed his number. My heart was pounding. I even practiced what I would say if he picked up. But instead of a ringtone, I heard, "The subscriber's phone is off, so you are being connected to voicemail." It was strange. I couldn't understand why a businessman would turn off his phone. Could the battery have died? Or was he really in a very important meeting? All sorts of thoughts raced through my mind. I thought about leaving a message, but decided to send a text instead. "Are you doing okay, Jian Ho? You left so suddenly this morning that I'm worried. I'm waiting to hear from you." After sending the message, I stared at my phone screen continuously. I waited for the one on KakaoTalk to disappear, indicating he'd read it. But even as time passed, the number didn't change. Did I save his number wrong? I checked my contacts, but the number was correct. Even as evening came, there was still no contact from Jian Ho. Now I was starting to feel truly anxious. While preparing dinner, and even watching TV, I kept checking my phone. As time went on, my uneasiness grew larger. I even kept my phone by my pillow when I lay down to sleep. Am I being too sensitive? Or did something really happen to him? Even as I tried to sleep, my mind was filled with thoughts of Jian Ho. The sweet memories of last night and our sudden parting this morning kept crossing my mind. I tossed and turned until I finally fell asleep. The first thing I did the next morning was check my phone. But there was still no word from Jian Ho. Now I really felt that something was wrong. It's strange. No matter how busy, how could there not be one contact all day? I called him again, but as expected, the power is switched off. That recorded message just kept repeating. The message on KakaoTalk still showed the unread one. Seeing the message unread for the second day, I grew increasingly restless. Could he be avoiding me? As that thought crossed my mind, my heart sank. But I quickly brushed that thought aside. I wanted to believe that his sincere eyes and warm words last night were true. I kept checking my phone while eating lunch and doing chores. I couldn't put it down, as if my hand was glued to it. My heart pounded at every ring, but it was always someone else. Did something happen to him? Or did he just stop liking me? Without realizing it, I looked into the mirror and muttered to myself. I couldn't understand why the person who called me beautiful yesterday was so silent today. Another day passed, and by the second day I found myself constantly staring at my phone, waiting for a sign from Jian Ho. The battery drained faster than usual from all the checking, so I kept the charger close by. I felt like I was burning up inside. How could he do this? How could someone who opened up to me, someone who claimed to be so sincere, disappear so easily? On the third day, I decided to stop worrying alone. I wanted to know why Gunho had gone silent. Above all, I needed to know if he was really a decent person, or if something else was going on. Finally, with a heavy heart, I called Yeon-suk, who had set us up. Unlike her usual bright tone, my voice was trembling.
Yeon-suk, it's Haeja. Do you have a moment?
Yeon-suk's voice was as cheerful as ever. But the moment I brought up Gunho, her tone shifted subtly.
Gunho? Oh, you mean that guy from the blind date? Is he not keeping in touch?
I cautiously explained the situation. Everything from the blind date to our time at the residence. And how he left in a rush the next morning and never reached out again. I left out the intimate details, but Yeon-suk must have sensed the deep connection we had shared.
So, is there anything else you know about him?
Do you have another way to reach him? I felt a silence on the other end of the line. A moment later, she stumbled over her words as if flustered.
Haeja, actually I don't really know him that well. A friend said he was a decent guy, so I introduced you.
My heart sank instantly. Something about her tone felt off. She continued to speak.
That acquaintance didn't know him personally either, but was introduced through someone else, so I don't have solid info.
As I heard those words, a cold reality crashed over me. Yeon-suk didn't actually know anything about Gunho either. The man I had opened my heart to was someone whose true identity was a complete mystery.
Then can you ask that acquaintance for me?
Yeon-suk seemed to hesitate once again at my question. Then she answered cautiously.
I'll ask, but don't get your hopes up. Even that acquaintance might not know the details.
After hanging up, I sat there in a daze for a long time. Complex emotions came flooding in. Anger, anxiety, betrayal, and above all, shame. I felt pathetic for opening up so easily at our first meeting. In the silence, more and more questions arose.
Was his career as an aircraft mechanic actually real? The So-young warehouse, business, and that residence, were they really his?
Suddenly, memories of that night flashed through my mind like shards. The way he acted at the residence, the fact that there were no photos or personal items of his anywhere, the sterile atmosphere that felt like a hotel. Thinking back, everything seemed suspicious. A strange premonition was turning into conviction. Gunho might have been lying from the very beginning. The thought that his sweet words, soft gaze, and everything might have been a calculated act made my heart feel like it was breaking. Sitting on the sofa, looking out the window, I asked myself,
how could something like this happen to me? To be deceived like this at 62 brought tears to my eyes,
but I held them back because nothing was certain yet. But in a corner of my heart, I already knew that Gunho would never call again, and that the memories of that night were nothing more than a fleeting fantasy. A few days have passed since I called Yeon-suk. During that time, I still hadn't received any word from Gunho. I thought about giving up entirely, but a small flicker of hope remained in a corner, of my heart. Could something have really happened to him? Could he have been in an accident? I was spending my days lost in such thoughts. Then one afternoon, the phone rang. The name Yeonsuk appeared on the screen. I answered the phone quickly.
Yeonsuk, what's wrong?
The voice coming from the other end of the line was trembling, unlike usual. I felt intuitively that there was some bad news.
Haega, I'm sorry, but they say that man makes a habit of meeting middle-aged women, getting close to them, and then cutting ties and disappearing.
For a moment, I doubted my ears. It felt as if I couldn't hear Yeonsuk's words properly. No, maybe I just didn't want to hear them.
What are you talking about? What does that mean?
My voice was trembling. Yeonsuk let out a sigh and explained, slowly.
She said that acquaintance has also been getting a lot of calls about Gunho recently. They target women our age, saying lonely, older women are easy marks and that they cut contact right after spending the night. I was so shocked I couldn't speak, even as she kept saying he seemed like such a decent person
And she didn't know why he'd do that. Yeonsuk kept on talking.
She said it's a tactic where they win your heart with sweet words and then disappear after one night together. I'm so sorry, Haega,
for introducing him without looking into him properly. I couldn't even hear Yeonsuk's apologies. My mind was completely filled with memories of Gunho. His warm gaze, his gentle touch, and all those words I believed were sincere. How could they all have been lies? After hanging up the phone, I sat there blankly for a long time. I couldn't accept the reality. Or rather, I didn't want to accept it. So I pinned my last hope on taking action. I decided to verify it for myself. I decided to go back to the residence where we spent that night. I hoped that maybe Gunho might be there, or that at least I could find some clue about him. I took a taxi and headed to Hyundai. The scenery outside the window was the same as that day, but my heart was completely different. Anxiety and dread were filling my heart instead of excitement. I arrived at the residence building and walked into the lobby. I approached the staff member at the front desk.
Excuse me, room 2300? I was there a few days ago, you see.
The staff checked the computer again, and his answer left me even more devastated.
2300 is a short-term rental unit. It's a room that can be rented by the day or two, like an Airbnb.
The moment I heard that, my vision blurred. I felt the strength leave my entire body. Everything Gunho said, the place he called his residence, was just a place he rented. For a day I collapsed onto the lobby sofa. It felt as if all my senses had stopped. A reality I could no longer deny crashed down on me. I had been deceived. I had been thoroughly and deliberately deceived. Only then did everything make sense. Why there were no personal items in the residence, why he left in such a hurry that morning, and why he cut off all contact, it was all a scripted plan. I was just another target for Gunho. Those sweet words, the looks I believed were sincere. Everything was a lie. The bitter reality was too painful to accept. While returning home from the residence, I couldn't properly process what had happened. It felt like I was in a dream. Because it was too cruel to accept as reality. As soon as I opened my front door and stepped inside, reality hit me hard. Memories of my time with Byung-ho came flooding back. His gentle touch, his sweet whispers, those eyes I believed were sincere. To think it was all just an act. How could he do this? The words I muttered without thinking echoed through the living room. My legs gave way, and I collapsed onto the floor. The tears I had been holding back finally burst forth. A sense of betrayal hit me first. I trusted him. I believed every word he said was sincere. I thought he was someone special. But to him, I was just one of many targets. What followed next was shame. How could I open my heart so easily? At my age, I thought I had experience and wisdom, so why did I make such a choice? Yoon-suk's words kept ringing in my ears. That lonely older women are easy targets. I suppose that was true. I was lonely. I had been alone for 8 years since my husband passed away. I was craving someone's warm touch and affectionate gaze. Was that longing what blinded my judgment? Why did I agree to that night? A voice of self-reproach echoed in my head. If I hadn't gone to his residence that first night, if I hadn't fallen for his sweet words, if I hadn't spent that night with him, maybe I wouldn't be this hurt. Sitting on the living room floor, I sobbed. I wailed like a child. All the sorrow, loneliness, and the pain from this incident that I had bottled up for 8 years poured out at once. Foolish woman, what were you expecting at this age? Anger and disappointment toward myself washed over me. The time we spent, the stories we shared, and the memories of that night have all turned into bitter wounds. Accepting the fact that the emotions I believed to be sincere were just someone's trivial game was far more painful than I imagined. My phone rang. It was Yoon-suk. I didn't want to answer, but she was still my old friend. I picked up the phone with trembling hands.
Hey Ja, are you okay? I'm so worried.
Yoon-suk's voice was filled with genuine concern. But I couldn't say a word. Only sobs leaked out.
I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I should have looked into it more carefully.
Yoon-suk kept apologizing, but I didn't want to blame her. This was entirely my own fault. I was the one who fell for his sweet words, and I was the one who decided to be with him that night. No one forced me. Even after hanging up the phone, I couldn't stop crying for a long time. Everything in the house felt empty. The ticking of the clock on the wall and the sound of wind outside seemed to amplify my loneliness. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen, and my makeup was smeared with tears. The face that Gun-ho said was beautiful that night was now distorted with sorrow. If I had known it would end like this, I wouldn't have started at all. But what is the point of regretting it now? The wounds are already deep, and that pain won't fade away easily. For several days since that day, I didn't step outside my house. I didn't answer the phone when it rang, and I didn't open the door when the doorbell chimed. Yoon-soo visited me several times, but I ignored it all. I just wanted to be alone and forget. I spent my time lying in bed just staring at the ceiling. Memories of Gun-ho kept swirling in my mind. How could I have believed that he was sincere? How could I have been deceived so easily? Those questions tormented me. Had a week passed? Suddenly, my reflection in the mirror caught my eye. Swollen eyes, pale face, and messy hair. I looked so miserable. I suddenly realized something.
If I keep falling apart like this, he wins.
That's right. I decided to stop crying anymore. Hey. The tears I had already shed were enough. Gun-ho was nothing more than a passing cloud in my life. I didn't want to waste any more of my life on him. I got up from bed and threw the windows wide open. For the first time in a while, fresh air brushed against my face. A little later, I took a long overdue shower and changed into clean clothes. I brushed my hair neatly and put on some simple makeup. The woman in the mirror was still wounded, but she was also a woman ready to move forward. I couldn't fully forgive myself for giving my heart away so easily to sweet talk. But I wanted to learn from the experience. I called Yoon-soo. She answered the phone right away.
Hey Ja, are you okay? I was so worried about you.
Yoon-soo's voice was filled with genuine concern. Only then did I feel sorry for being distant from my friend.
I'm okay. I'm sorry for everything.
Since I hadn't been in touch, we decided to meet at a cafe for the first time in a while. My steps were heavy leaving the house, but it was time to return to my daily life. Meeting Yeon-soo, I laughed sincerely for the first time in a while. We didn't talk about Gun-ho anymore. That is a thing of the past now. Instead, we talked about how I would live from now on.
From now on, I will look at actions, not words. Words are easy to say, but actions cannot lie.
Yeon-soo nodded at my words. She seemed to understand how great a lesson I had learned. On the way home, memories of my husband suddenly came to mind. He didn't talk much, but he always showed his love through actions. The way he nursed me all night when I was sick, the touch that quietly stayed by my side when things were hard, and his considerate attitude in small daily things. That was true love. I only realized it now. True love is not about fancy words or sweet promises, but about seeing how consistent and sincere one's words and actions are. Actions do not lie. Sincerity that remains unchanged over time is inevitably revealed through actions. I sat by the window and thought as I watched the sunset. My experience with Gun-ho was certainly painful, but through it, I learned a bitter lesson in life. Now I will be wiser and I will not repeat the same mistake again. I took out my diary and wrote in it for the first time in a while.
Today I realized something. That sincerity is shown through actions, not words, and that I will be wiser from now on. I will have the eyes to look at actions instead of being swayed by words.
I closed my diary and looked out the window. The city lights began to turn on one by one. I suddenly wondered where Gun-ho might be now, and if he was saying the same things to another woman, but it didn't matter anymore. Was it my fault? Now I felt like I knew the answer to that question. It is natural for anyone to crave love and want to soothe their loneliness. That desire itself is not wrong. However, I learned that there are people who take advantage of that desire. And I learned that I must look at their actions rather than their words. They say time heals everything. Several months have passed since the incident with Gun-ho. The seasons changed, the cold winter passed, and spring arrived. Outside the window, cherry blossoms were in full bloom. It was the same scenery as the spring when I met Gun-ho this time last year, but my heart had completely changed. The weather is really nice today. Is anyone interested in going to see the cherry blossoms? The teacher asked after the calligraphy class at the cultural center ended. Some students showed interest at those words. I was quietly packing up my calligraphy tools when the person sitting next to me spoke to me.
Oija, would you like to go see the cherry blossoms together if you have time? They say the cherry blossoms at Gangseo Park are very pretty these days.
He was young Taehyun, who had been in the calligraphy class since this semester. He was a 65-year-old retired teacher. His calm and serious demeanor had been impressive since the first time I met him. It was nice to see him silently focusing on his work even during the 2-hour class. For a moment I hesitated. I still had a lingering fear of meeting another man, alone after Gunho. But Mr. Jung was different. I watched him for 2 months while taking the same class, and I got to know his character to some extent. Above all, he didn't use flashy words or exaggerated expressions. He was always genuine and straightforward.
Yes, that sounds good. Shall we go together?
At my answer, Mr. Jung smiled softly. The fact that he wasn't overly excited or giddy actually gave me a sense of stability. The next day, we met at Gangseo Park. Mr. Jung had arrived 10 minutes before the scheduled time. It was just like how he always arrived early to prepare for class. That small bit of consistency meant a lot to me. We walked slowly along the cherry blossom path, naturally sharing a conversation. Mr. Jae-young said he had taught Korean at a middle school for 40 years. He mentioned that he spends his time after retirement doing calligraphy and reading.
It has been 3 years since I lost my wife. At first it was truly difficult. But as time passed, I slowly returned to my daily life.
Encouraged by Mr. Jung's sincere confession, I gathered the courage to share my own story about the memories with my late husband and the time I spent alone. Of course, I didn't mention Gunho. I wasn't ready for that just yet. We sat on a bench under the cherry blossoms and shared a packed lunch. It was something Mr. Jung had prepared himself. It was a simple meal, but it was filled with care.
Your cooking skills are amazing. Did you make this yourself?
At my question, he smiled shyly.
Since my wife passed, I've had to take care of things on my own. I'm still clumsy, but I'm learning little by little.
I really liked that honest side of him. It was a way of showing himself as he was without any exaggeration. I could feel that he was a person who expressed himself through actions rather than words. Since that day, whenever we had class, we would have lunch together. Sometimes we went to art museums or browsed through books at a bookstore together. Mr. Jung was never in a rush. He seemed to be waiting for our relationship to develop slowly and naturally. This time, I didn't feel impatient either. Instead of just listening to words, I tried to learn his true character by observing his daily attitude. Mr. Jae-young kept his promises strictly, was diligent in small things, and above all, his actions matched his words. He always kept his word. On a day when the spring breeze was gently blowing, Mr. Jung asked me cautiously,
Hey Ja, how would you feel about us continuing to spend time together like this? Getting to know each other slowly, without rushing.
I smiled at his question. Now I know that true love is proven not by fancy words, but by small actions in daily life, and above all, how precious it is to respect each other and move forward slowly. I intend to take things slowly now.
Yes, that sounds good. Let's walk together slowly.
Walking side by side with Mr. Jung, I was preparing to open my heart once again. This time more wisely and more cautiously, but still holding on to hope. Everyone Thank you for listening to my story. Life sometimes brings unexpected wounds and failures. But if you learn and grow from those experiences, you can become a stronger and wiser person. The lesson I learned from Gun-ho is that love is proven by actions, not words. Don't be swayed by fancy words, but look at the small actions in that person's daily life. I hope this story serves as a small comfort and hope for those who have had similar experiences. You too can overcome your wounds and stand up again, just like me. Because life still goes on. If this video was helpful, please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. And please leave your experiences or thoughts in the comments. We can grow together by sharing each other's stories. I will return with a better story next time. This has been talking about the second half of life. This was Jihai's story. Thank you sincerely for listening until the end.